Hey there, friend. I'm so happy you're here. Today's story is a gentle, funny little memory about getting in trouble at school, but not the scary kind. Just the sort of innocent, silly kind that makes you smile years later. So wherever you are curled up on the couch, sipping tea in your favorite chair, or lying in bed with your eyes just starting to feel sleepy, this tale is for you. Let's begin. I grew up in a small town called Willowend, where the trees leaned like they were always listening, and the school building smelled like crayons and raincoats. Our school wasn't big, just one long hallway with classrooms on each side, a sunny playground out back, and a patch of forest behind the soccer field that we weren't technically supposed to play in. My favorite part of school wasn't the lessons or even recess, though those were nice. It was mornings, when the air was cool and everyone's breath made little clouds, and the garden outside the cafeteria glistened with dew. I'd arrive early just to sit on the stone steps, where I could smell the muffins baking and listen to the robins chattering in the trees. Back then, I wasn't the kind of kid who got into trouble. I was quiet. I colored inside the lines, always remembered my lunchbox, and said yes, ma'am, when teachers called my name. But there was one day that didn't go quite as planned. It was early spring. The grass was still wet from last night's storm, and puddles shimmered across the playground like tiny lakes. I had on my new yellow boots, which squeaked slightly with every step. My best friend, Junie, had dared me to jump across the biggest puddle in the schoolyard. "I bet you can't do it," she said, grinning. "Bet you'll splash." Now, I knew we weren't supposed to run through the puddles. The sign next to the swing set said so. No puddles, no exceptions. But the puddle was right there, big and round like a mirror. And something about Junie's challenge made me feel bold. So I took a few steps back, held my breath, and jumped. Almost. I didn't quite make it across. My boots landed right in the middle, with a huge splash that sent muddy water soaring into the air. It sprayed onto my socks, my backpack, even poor Junie's skirt. We both froze, and then we laughed. Not just a little giggle, but a full belly, falling over kind of laugh that echoed across the playground. That's when we heard the door open behind us. It was Mrs. Abbott. Now, if you've never met a teacher like Mrs. Abbott, let me paint a picture. She wore glasses on a string, always smelled like peppermint and old books, and had a way of raising just one eyebrow that made you feel instantly guilt-heaving if you hadn't done anything yet. She looked down at my soggy boots, then at the puddle, then at me. I smiled sheepishly. It was a science experiment? Mrs. Abbott didn't yell. She didn't even frown. She just sighed and handed me a stack of paper towels. "Since you like puddles so much," she said, "perhaps you'll enjoy cleaning up the muddy footprints in the hallway." I nodded, still grinning, and as Junie helped me mop up the tiny trail I'd left behind, we both agreed that puddle was totally worth it. Now, if you've ever had the hiccups during a spelling test or sneezed in the middle of a library, you know how tricky bodies can be. Mine certainly had its moments. It was a chilly morning in October. The leaves outside were turning golden and crisp, and the school smelled like cinnamon from the big crock-pot of cider the lunch lady had going by the cafeteria. Everyone had sweaters tied around their waists and little chapped lips from the wind. That day in class, we were doing a poetry reading. The room was unusually quiet sunlight, spilling in soft stripes across the carpet, and everyone taking turns reading from an old collection of nature poems. My turn was coming up soon. Now, earlier that morning, I'd accidentally used Junie's mint lip balm instead of mine. Junie had a whole collection: wild berry, cherry cola, even one that smelled like pickles. But the mint one? That one was dangerous. I didn't know at the time, but I was highly allergic to peppermint oil. Not in a scary way, just in a very sneezy way. So there I sat at my desk, clutching my poetry book, when it began. A tickle, right behind my nose. I tried to sniff it away. I tried to rub it away. But it was no use. Just as Tommy Hill stood up and began reading, "The wind whispers through the trees." Ah! Shoo! I sneezed so loudly. Everyone jumped. My chair squeaked. My book flew off my lap. And poor Tommy dropped his poem. But it didn't stop there. Ah! Shoo! Ach! 3 in a row, each one louder than the last, each one bouncing off the classroom walls like a trumpet blast. The last one actually knocked over my pencil cup. There was a long pause, and then of course Latter, Mrs. Abbott, our teacher, who was always composed and calm, pinched the bridge of her nose. "Bless you," she said, not unkindly, but with the voice of someone who had already blessed children 5 times that morning. I sat, red-faced, dabbing my nose with a crumpled tissue. Mrs. Abbott walked over slowly, reached into her sweater pocket, and pulled out a single peppermint candy. She dangled it in front of me with a raised eyebrow. This, I assume, would be a very bad idea. I nodded vigorously. "Then perhaps," she said, placing the candy in her desk drawer, "you can write your own poem about the powers of peppermint." That afternoon, I turned in a short poem titled "The Leaf That Made Me Sneeze." It included dramatic metaphors, a rhyming sneeze chorus, and a doodle of me blowing into a comically large tissue. Mrs. Abbott gave it a gold star. Later, I caught her smiling at it when she thought no one was looking. It was a Thursday, the kind that starts off foggy, with soft light curling through the trees, and everything feeling quieter than usual. The school grounds were blanketed in mist, and the windows of Willowwind Elementary steamed up from the warm breath of 100 chattering students inside. That morning, I had a mission: to deliver a folder of library slips to the front office. Mrs. Abbott handed me the folder with great seriousness. "Walk, not run. Deliver this straight to the secretary. Do not detour." I nodded, clutching the manila folder like it was made of glass. I didn't want another gold star for disaster. Now, if you've never seen the principal's office at Willowwind, let me paint you a picture. It sat at the end of the hallway like a secret chamber. The floors were polished. The chairs squeaked politely. There was always the faint smell of lemon cleaner and something floral. That something floral was the principal's pride and joy, a towering potted plant named Sir Fronsworth. Nobody knew the exact species, but he had long, floppy leaves and sat in a ceramic pot with painted eyes and a smile. Students weren't allowed to touch him. Naturally, I was very curious. I passed Sir Fronsworth on my way to the front desk. I didn't mean to stop, but one of his leaves brushed my elbow, and I thought maybe just one gentle pat. I reached out, just a soft little pat-pat on the top leaf. What I didn't see was that my shoelace had come undone. The moment I leaned in, I stepped on my own lace, wobbled forward and knocked straight into Sir Fronsworth. It was not a gentle tumble. He wobbled dangerously. The pot tilted, and with a soft, tragic thud, the whole thing tipped over. Dirt exploded like confetti. I stood frozen, hands out, heart thudding. The secretary looked up from her desk, eyes wide. And then clicked the door to the principal's office opened. Principal Merriweather was not a scary man. In fact, he looked like someone who should be selling jam at a farmer's market. Kind eyes, suspenders, and round glasses. But at that moment, as he stared down at the pile of soil and leaves on the hallway floor, he looked very serious indeed. "I just wanted to say hello," I whispered, "to the plant." There was a pause. Then, surprisingly, he smiled. "Well," he said gently, bending down to scoop soil back into the pot, "Sir Fronsworth is very charming." I rushed to help, brushing the dirt off the tile. "I'll water him extra. I'll clean the floor. He raised a hand. "How about this? You can come water him once a week. Carefully. No more patting." I nodded, cheeks pink. "Yes, sir." From that day on, every Wednesday morning, I stopped by the office to water Sir Fronsworth. I even made him a tiny sign that read, "Please, do not hug." The best part? Principal Merriweather added my drawing to the plant's pot right next to the painted smile. And that, dear listener, brings us to the end of our story.